My girlfriend, 26F, and I, 27M, had what I thought was the perfect relationship. 4 years. We'd met in our last year of college, navigated the awkward first jobs, and finally moved into a cozy apartment together that we'd painstakingly decorated with mismatched furniture and shared dreams. Clara was my world. She was vibrant, funny, and had this infectious energy that could light up a room. We talked about everything: marriage, kids, growing old on a porch somewhere. Our future was a beautiful, detailed painting we were creating together. Her best friend, Maya, 26F, was an integral part of that painting. She was the third musketeer. Maya was the calm to Clara's storm, the thoughtful lean to her impulsive yawn. She'd known Clara since they were kids. When I came into the picture, Maya welcomed me with open arms. She became my friend, too. The three of us were a unit. Movie nights, weekend trips, holiday dinners, Maya was always there, a steady, supportive presence for us both. That's why I never saw it coming. It was a Tuesday. I remember that because we had a standing taco night tradition. I'd gotten home from work, music playing, ingredients prepped, ready for our comfortable routine. But when Clara walked in, the air shifted. The usual bright smile was replaced by a taut, nervous energy. She put her bag down with a little too much force and wouldn't meet my eyes. "Hey, you okay?" I asked, turning down the music. "We need to talk," she said. The four most terrifying words in the English language. My stomach plummeted. My mind raced through the usual suspects. Did I forget an anniversary? Did I say something stupid? Is she sick? Is someone in her family sick? Nothing prepared me for what came next. We sat on the couch, the same one where we'd binge-watched entire seasons of shows and fallen asleep in each other's arms. She took a deep breath, her hands twisting in her lap. "Alex, I love you. You have to know that. You are my best friend, my rock," she started. It was the classic good news first preamble to a gut punch. "But," I prompted, my voice barely a whisper. "But I feel constrained," she said, finally looking at me. Her eyes were pleading, asking for an understanding I didn't have. "I've only ever been with you, really. Since college. I feel like there's a part of myself I haven't explored. Experiences I haven't had." The room felt cold. "What kind of experiences?" I asked, though a sickening dread was already pooling in my gut. "I want to be able to connect with other people. Romantically. Sexually," she said, the words hanging in the air like poison. "I've been reading about open relationships. Ethical non-monogamy. It's not about not loving you. It's about adding to my life, not replacing anything." I felt like I'd been submerged in ice water. An open relationship? The concept felt alien, a complete betrayal of everything we had built. My immediate, visceral reaction was a raw, primal no. It felt like she was saying I wasn't enough. "So you want to sleep with other people?" The words tasted like acid. "It's more than that," she insisted, getting defensive. "It's about freedom. It's about discovering who I am outside of this unit. I don't want to lose you, Alex. That's why I'm being honest. We could set rules. We'd still be primary partners. Nothing would have to change between us. But everything had already changed. In the span of 5 minutes, the beautiful painting of our future had been slashed with a knife. I felt a surge of anger, then deep, profound inadequacy. Was I boring? Was I bad in bed? Was I so fundamentally lacking that she needed to seek fulfillment elsewhere? I voiced these fears, my voice cracking. "Is this because of me? Am I not enough for you?" No, baby, it's not you. It's me," she said, reaching for my hand. I flinched. "This is my journey. I'm just asking you to come on it with me." We talked, or rather, she talked and I sat in stunned silence for what felt like hours. She had it all figured out. She'd read blogs, listened to podcasts. She had answers for all the logistical questions but none for the gaping wound she'd just opened in my chest. My choice was simple and impossible: refuse and lose her for certain, or agree and watch her be with other people, hoping this phase would pass and she'd choose me again at the end of it. The fear of losing her was a physical thing, a hand squeezing my throat. I loved this woman more than I loved my own pride. So, like a fool, I agreed. "Okay," I croaked. "We can try." Her relief was palpable, and it hurt more than anything. She hugged me, thanking me for being so open-minded and understanding. I felt like a fraud. I wasn't being open-minded, I was being a coward, terrified of being alone. The first set of rules were drawn up. Communication is key. No bringing people back to our apartment. Full veto power if either of us felt uncomfortable. It all sounded so clinical, so sterile, a business contract for the dismantling of my heart. A week later, she had her first date. She got ready in our bedroom, putting on a dress I'd never seen before. She looked beautiful, and the sight of it made me want to be sick. "I won't be late," she said, kissing my cheek. It felt like the peck a sister would give a brother. The moment the front door clicked shut, the silence in the apartment was deafening. I stood in the middle of our living room, surrounded by 4 years of memories, and felt an emptiness so complete it was a physical presence. I had just willingly handed over the love of my life to a stranger, and I had no one to blame but myself. I'd said yes, hoping to keep her. But as I stared at the closed door, I had the sinking feeling I had already lost her. The first few weeks of our new arrangement were a masterclass in psychological torture. On the surface, we tried to pretend everything was normal. We still had Taco Tuesdays. We still talked about our days at work. But there was a new, unspoken tension between us, a ghost at our dinner table. The ghost was made of her new experiences and my silent, gnawing misery. Clara was different. She had a new sparkle in her eye, the kind you get from the thrill of the new. She'd come home from her dates, a word that felt like a dagger every time she said it, and be buzzing with energy. She was careful at first, honoring our "don't ask, don't tell" rule. But the excitement would bubble over. She'd let slip details about a witty conversation with a guy named Leo, a charming musician, or a great glass of wine she had at a new bar with a graphic designer named Ben. Each little detail was a paper cut on my soul. I was supposed to be happy for her, to support her journey. Instead, I felt my insides twist with a jealousy so potent it made me dizzy. I tried to date, too. That was part of the deal, after all. It was fair. I went on one date with a perfectly nice woman from a dating app. We had coffee, and the entire time I felt like I was cheating. Not on the new Clara, but on the memory of the old one, the one who had been my entire world. I couldn't do it. It felt hollow and wrong. My life began to shrink. I stopped suggesting our usual weekend hikes because I was afraid she'd have other plans. I stopped initiating intimacy because I couldn't stop my mind from wondering who else she'd been with. I was losing weight. Sleep was a luxury. At work, I'd stare at my screen for hours, my focus completely shot. I was becoming a ghost in my own life, haunting the apartment we once called home. I was no longer her partner, I was her roommate, her safety net. The guy who paid half the rent and was always there to come home to after she was done exploring. The only person who seemed to notice was Maya. She'd call or text, ostensibly to check on both of us, but her questions were always pointedly directed at my well-being. "How are you doing with all this, Alex?" she'd ask, her tone laced with a concern that no one else was showing me. Clara was too wrapped up in her self-discovery, and my own friends didn't know how to react, offering clumsy platitudes like "at least she was honest" or "maybe you should get out there too, man." Maya was different. She listened. One afternoon, we met for coffee. Clara was on a weekend trip with Leo. A mini break, she'd called it. I hadn't slept in 2 days. "You look like hell, Alex," Maya said, her expression gentle but direct. She didn't beat around the bush. I just shrugged, stirring my coffee until it was a cold, muddy vortex. "Just tired." "Bullshit," she said softly. "You're not tired, you're heartbroken. And you're allowed to be." Her words hit me with the force of a physical blow. Someone was finally validating my pain. Someone was telling me I wasn't crazy or weak for feeling destroyed. The floodgates opened. I told her everything. How I felt inadequate, how the silence in the apartment was a physical weight, how every time Clara smiled at her phone, I felt a piece of myself die. I confessed that I'd only agreed because I was terrified of a life without her. Maya just listened, her eyes full of a deep, sad understanding. "She doesn't see what she's doing to you," Maya said, shaking her head. "She's so focused on what she wants, she's forgotten what she has. What you two had." She was loyal to Clara, but she was also loyal to the truth, and to me. That conversation became my lifeline. Maya started checking in more frequently. She'd drag me out of the apartment to see a movie or grab a beer, pulling me back into the world of the living. She never pushed, never told me what to do, but her presence was a quiet reminder that I still existed as a person, separate from my crumbling relationship. The breaking point came a month later. It was our 5-year anniversary. Not the dating anniversary, but the anniversary of the day we met. It had always been a special, private celebration for us. I'd made reservations at the fancy Italian place where we had our first real date. I bought her a beautiful necklace. I was clinging to the hope that a night focused on us could remind her of what we were losing. An hour before we were supposed to leave, she walked into the living room, still in her work clothes. "Hey," she said, avoiding my eyes. "About tonight. Leo's band has a last-minute gig. It's a really big deal for him." I told him I'd be there. I just stared at her. The gift box with the necklace was on the coffee table between us. "You're canceling on me? For him? On our anniversary?" My voice was flat, devoid of the anger I should have felt. I was just empty. "It's not an official anniversary, Alex," she said, her tone defensive. "And we can celebrate any time. This is a one-time thing for him. You get that, right?" I didn't get it. I didn't get any of it. I just nodded slowly, the last flicker of hope extinguishing inside me. "Yeah. I get it." She left. I canceled the reservation. I put the necklace in the back of my closet. I sat on the couch in the dark, and for the first time, I didn't cry. I just felt nothing. The slow drift away was complete. She wasn't my girlfriend anymore. I was just an option. An anchor she could use when it was convenient. Later that night, my phone buzzed. It was Maya. She told me what she did. "I'm so sorry, Alex. Are you okay?" I typed back a single word, "No." 10 minutes later, there was a knock at the door. It was Maya, holding a container of my favorite ice cream and 2 spoons. She didn't say anything. She just walked in, sat next to me on the couch, and gave me a hug. It was a simple, platonic hug from a friend, but in that moment, as I finally let the tears fall, it was the first time in months I felt a flicker of genuine, unconditional warmth. It wasn't from the woman I loved, but from the one who was there to pick up the pieces. After the anniversary debacle, something in me shifted. The deep, agonizing pain didn't vanish overnight, but it began to curdle into something else, resolve. The hug from Maya on the couch was more than just comfort, it was a jolt of electricity to a system that had flatlined. It was a reminder that human connection didn't have to be a complicated negotiation. Sometimes, it was just someone showing up with ice cream because you were hurting. My friendship with Maya became my anchor in the storm. It was completely platonic, a safe harbor free from the romantic turmoil that was my life. We started hanging out more, but it was different now. It wasn't about her patching me up after Clara had knocked me down. It was about 2 friends genuinely enjoying each other's company. We went on the hikes Clara and I used to take. We found a ramen place that became our spot. We'd spend hours talking about everything and nothing, books, stupid internet memes, our ambitions, our fears. With Maya, I could just be Alex. Not Clara's long-suffering boyfriend. Not the guy who agreed to an open relationship. Just Alex. And slowly, that version of me started to feel more real than the shell of a man I'd become. Fueled by this newfound sense of self, I started taking back control of my life, piece by piece. The first step was the gym. I channeled all my frustration, my anger, my sadness into weights and cardio. The physical exhaustion was a welcome relief from the mental kind. I started sleeping better. My body, which had felt weak and neglected, started to feel strong again. It was mine. Then, I threw myself into work. A big project came up that everyone else was avoiding. I volunteered. I worked late, not to avoid the empty apartment, but because I was genuinely engaged and motivated. I was good at my job, and I'd forgotten what that felt like. My boss noticed. My confidence, which had been ground to dust, started to rebuild itself. I reconnected with my own friends, the ones I had drifted from because I was too ashamed to explain my situation. I was honest with them. I told them I'd messed up, that I was miserable, and that I was trying to fix myself, if not the relationship. They rallied around me, no judgment, just support. The strange thing was, as my world started to expand, Clara began to notice. The less I acted like a kicked puppy waiting by the door, the more she seemed to want my attention. "You're at the gym a lot," she'd comment, a strange note in her voice. "Yeah, it feels good," I'd reply, keeping it simple. "You and Maya have been hanging out a lot," she said one evening, trying to sound casual. "Yeah, she's a great friend," I said, not taking the bait. The dynamic between us had inverted. I was no longer orbiting her, I was building my own gravitational pull. My happiness was no longer contingent on her mood or her plans. And that seemed to unsettle her. The freedom she'd so desperately wanted was predicated on the idea that I would always be her stable, predictable home base. Now, that base was renovating. One Friday night, I was at my place. I was already starting to think of it as my place, not our place, and Maya came over. We'd ordered pizza and were getting ready to watch some terrible 80s action movie. I was telling her about a breakthrough I'd had on my work project, and I felt genuinely happy. Proud. "Look at you," Maya said, smiling warmly. "The light is back in your eyes, Alex. It's really good to see." "I couldn't have done it without you," I told her, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. "Seriously, Maya. You pulled me out of a very dark place." She just bumped her shoulder against mine. "That was all you. You just needed someone to hold the flashlight." We were laughing at a ridiculously over-the-top explosion in the movie, pizza crusts abandoned on the coffee table, when the front door opened. It was Clara. She was home early. Her date, presumably with Leo the musician, was supposed to go late. She stopped dead in the doorway, taking in the scene. Me and her best friend, sitting comfortably on the couch, surrounded by pizza boxes, laughing. We weren't doing anything wrong. It was perfectly innocent. But in that moment, the intimacy of our friendship was on full display. We looked like a couple. A happy one. The smile on Clara's face faltered. She looked at me, then at Maya, then back at me. Her expression was a complex cocktail of emotions I couldn't immediately decipher: surprise, confusion, a flicker of something that looked suspiciously like jealousy, and maybe, just maybe, the first shadow of regret. The air in the room, which had been so light and easy, suddenly became thick with everything that had been left unsaid between the three of us for months. "Oh," Clara said, her voice small. "I didn't realize you had company." The laughter died in my throat. Maya's smile faded. The comfortable bubble we had built for ourselves had just been burst, and the fallout felt like it was going to be massive. The atmosphere in the apartment after Clara walked in was so tense you could have cut it with a knife. Maya, ever the diplomat, quickly gathered her things. "I should get going," she said, giving me a quick, supportive glance that said stay strong. "Good to see you, Clara." Clara just nodded, her eyes fixed on me as Maya let herself out. The moment the door clicked shut, the silence was accusatory. "So," Clara began, crossing her arms. "This is a regular thing now? You and Maya?" I refused to be put on the defensive. I had done nothing wrong. We're friends, Clara. She's been there for me while you've been busy. I kept my tone level, calm. The old me would have been flustered, apologetic. The new me was done apologizing for having a support system. It just looks a little cozy, don't you think? She pressed, a sharp edge to her voice. My boyfriend and my best friend, having pizza nights in my apartment while I'm out. The hypocrisy was staggering. Are you seriously trying to make me feel guilty for having a friend over? I asked, my voice rising slightly despite my best efforts. You're the one who wanted the freedom to see other people. Did you think that meant I had to sit here in the dark and wait for you to come home? That was the deal at first, I guess, but I'm not playing that game anymore. That shut her down. She deflated, slumping onto a chair. My date was a bust, she said quietly, as if that explained everything. Leo's, he's not who I thought he was. It's all very superficial. I felt a brief, ugly flicker of satisfaction, which I quickly squashed. This wasn't about winning. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, and I was, in a detached sort of way. I didn't want her to be unhappy. I just didn't want her unhappiness to be my problem anymore. Over the next week, Clara made a sudden, jarring pivot. The exploration seemed to be on hold. She was home every night. She started suggesting us things again. Let's go to that restaurant, let's watch that show. She was trying to put the genie back in the bottle, to rewind time to before her journey. She'd touch my arm, try to initiate the old, easy intimacy we once had. But for me, it was too late. The connection was severed. Her touch felt foreign. Her attempts at connection felt like a desperate grab for the stability she had willingly thrown away. I saw it for what it was. The thrill was gone, the grass wasn't greener, and now she wanted her safety net back. I was no longer a person to her, I was a thing. A comfortable couch to crash on after a failed adventure. The realization settled in my bones, cold and heavy. I didn't love her anymore. I loved the memory of the girl I used to know, but the woman standing in front of me was a stranger who had hurt me deeply and was now trying to pretend it never happened. I couldn't live like that. I knew what I had to do. I waited until the weekend. I asked her to sit down on the same couch where she'd first shattered my world. This time, I was the one initiating the talk. Clara, this isn't working, I said, my voice firm. Her face fell. What do you mean? I've been trying. I've been here, haven't I? We can fix this. There's nothing to fix, I said gently. It's broken. When you wanted the open relationship, you asked me to let you go, and I did. I let you drift away, just like you wanted. But somewhere along the way, I let go, too. Tears welled in her eyes. So what, you're breaking up with me? After everything? Yes, I said. The word was the hardest and easiest thing I'd ever said. Not just the open relationship. Us. It's over. The dam broke. The tears turned into sobs, then accusations. It's because of Maya, isn't it? You're leaving me for my best friend. I can't believe you would do this to me. No, I said, shaking my head. I needed her to understand this part, even if she never understood anything else. This has nothing to do with Maya. Maya was just the friend who helped me realize I deserved more than being someone's backup plan. I'm not leaving you for anyone. I'm leaving you for me. For my own self-respect. You taught me a very hard lesson, Clara. You can't build your happiness on someone else's pain. And you can't expect someone to wait forever for you to figure out what you want. I stood up. I'd already packed a bag with a week's worth of clothes and essentials. It was sitting by the door. Seeing it, her face crumpled in final, devastating realization. This was real. Where will you go? She whispered, looking small and lost. I'll figure it out, I said. I walked to the door, my bag in hand. I paused, but I didn't look back. I couldn't. I walked out of the apartment, closing the door softly behind me on 4 years of my life. Standing on the pavement outside, the cool night air felt electric. I felt terrified, unmoored, and completely, utterly free. I pulled out my phone. I didn't call a friend for a place to crash, I already had a hotel booked for the week. But I did make one call. "Hey," I said when she picked up. "Alex? Is everything okay?" Maya's voice was full of concern. "I did it," I said, my own voice shaking with the enormity of it all. "I left." There was a pause on the other end of the line, then a soft exhale. "Okay," she said. Not "I'm sorry," not "finally," just a simple, grounding, "okay." "What do you need?" "Nothing right now," I replied. "I just needed to tell someone." As I ended the call and started walking toward the rest of my life, I knew the journey ahead was uncertain. But for the first time in a long time, it felt like it was truly mine. The first few weeks after the breakup were a blur of logistics and raw, untethered emotion. I lived in a soulless extended stay hotel while I apartment hunted. The process of separating our lives was clinical and brutal. We communicated only through text, coordinating times for me to come by the old apartment to pack my things. I'd go when she was at work, boxing up my books, my clothes, my half of the kitchen gadgets. Each item was a tiny memory I had to put in a box and tape shut. It was painful, but it was also a necessary cleansing. During this time, Maya was a rock. She respected the space I needed but made it clear she was there. She helped me look at apartment listings. She brought me a real home-cooked meal at my hotel so I wouldn't have to eat takeout again. We didn't talk about Clara. We didn't talk about us. We talked about furniture, neighborhoods, and the future, in the most general, hopeful sense. Her friendship was a quiet, steady light guiding me through the fog. I found a place. A small one-bedroom that was all mine. The first night I spent there, sleeping on an air mattress on the floor, surrounded by boxes, was one of the most peaceful nights of sleep I'd had in a year. The silence wasn't empty, it was full of potential. This was my canvas. With a new home and a clear head, I doubled down on myself. My project at work was a massive success, leading to a promotion and a raise. I established a solid routine, gym in the morning, focused work during the day, evenings spent either with my own friends, exploring my new neighborhood, or simply enjoying the quiet of my own space. I was healing. More than that, I was thriving. I was discovering that I was not just half of a whole, I was a complete person on my own. My relationship with Maya continued to be the steadiest thing in my life. It was a slow burn, built on a foundation of deep friendship and mutual respect. We never had a big "we need to talk about us" moment. It just evolved. It evolved in the lingering glances over dinner. It evolved in the way we'd text each other first with good news. It evolved in the comfortable silences that felt as fulfilling as conversation. The shift happened one evening, about 3 months after my breakup. We were on my new couch, watching a movie. It was a scene I'd seen 100 times with Clara. But this time was different. At some point, my hand found hers. It wasn't a calculated move, it was an instinct. A simple, natural impulse. She didn't pull away. Instead, her fingers intertwined with mine. We didn't say anything. We just sat there, holding hands, and everything felt right. It wasn't a desperate grab for comfort, it was a quiet acknowledgement of a connection that had been growing all along. After the movie, I walked her to her car. "For what it's worth," I said, finally finding the words. "I know the history is complicated. But this, with you, feels simple. It feels real." Maya smiled, a real, radiant smile. "It is real, Alex. We didn't look for this. We just found it." That was the beginning. Our first official date was a week later. We talked about everything, the awkwardness with Clara, they were no longer speaking, a casualty of Clara's choices, our fears of what people might think, and our mutual decision that our happiness was worth pursuing, regardless of the messy backstory. Our relationship wasn't born from betrayal, it was born from the ashes of two other relationships, mine with Clara, and Maya's friendship with her. It was something new, built on honesty in a friendship that had been tested by fire. It's been a year now. My apartment feels like home. My job is challenging and rewarding. My life is full. And Maya is my partner, in the truest sense of the word. Our relationship is calm, supportive, and full of laughter. It's everything I thought I had with Clara, but it's real. It's built on a foundation of two whole people choosing each other, not one person trying to hold on to the other. Sometimes I think about Clara. I don't feel anger anymore, just a kind of distant pity. I heard through the grapevine she's still searching, hopping from one thrilling new connection to the next, never quite satisfied. She wanted to explore, but I think she ended up getting lost. She thought an open relationship would make her feel free, but she didn't understand what true freedom is. It's not about having endless options. It's about taking control of your own happiness. It's about having the strength to walk away from something that's breaking you, and the courage to build something new for yourself. I didn't find my happiness by replacing Clara with Maya. I found it when I chose myself. The fact that Maya was there to choose me back is just the happiest postscript to a very difficult story.